Famous Dex, also known as Dexter Woe, also known as a free moneymaker for any upcoming YouTuber who wants to make a video on a fallen off artist, but holy shit, this story is sad. One of the OG members of the SoundCloud wave who blew up to kinda big heights, not even really the mainstream I wouldn't say, made his way into the scene and started making moves only to fall off harder than anybody else in the entire wave. At one point, Famous Dex could have been the next Lil Uzi Vert. He actually could have been on that level alongside Playboy Cardi and all the big SoundCloud rappers that actually persisted through the generations, but now he's left as nothing more than a reminder of a simpler time. And that's mostly why every time that he pops up recently, people say it reminds them of 2017, because that's all that Famous Dex is at this point, a gimmick from a bygone age. So let's look into the story of Famous Dex and see exactly how he got to the point where he is right now. Dexter T1 Gore Jr. was born September 6, 1993 in New York City, spending a short time there before his entire family moved to Chicago, with the young Dexter being primarily raised on the south side of the Englewood neighborhood, which is pretty dangerous. It's a place that's surrounded by a lot of gang culture, constant crime, and petty theft. But despite his surroundings, Dex was always an energetic and happy-go-lucky kid. His mother described him as a very energetic kid that could never sit still, and he was also very funny, always being able to charm and make the people around him laugh, eventually becoming a class clown when he got into middle school. And surprisingly, unlike most other rappers I talk about, Dexter actually really liked school, so much so that when he would get suspended, he was actually pretty upset because he felt like he was missing out on everything that was going on at the time. Yeah, kids like this are definitely a dangerous breed, I gotta tell you. But when he wasn't in school, he was often playing basketball, getting to know more people through the sport, and growing his reputation in the city, being popular within his neighborhood years before he ever picked up a mic. Not too dissimilar to Lil Wop, who is actually, surprisingly, Dexter's blood cousin. But that's not the only weird connection with Dex, because he actually went to high school with Lil Durk, before the two unfortunately ended up on opposite sides of the gang war in Chicago. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, because as Dex got older and older, he got better and better at basketball, so much to the point that he actually had a scholarship lined up after high school, with his mother actually moving him to Indiana in hopes of getting him out of the struggle, putting him in a better neighborhood, and hopefully getting him a good education. But unfortunately, that didn't end up happening, because soon after, tragedy would strike in Famous Dex's life, because his mother actually ended up getting breast cancer and grew sicker and sicker as the years went on, unfortunately passing away when Dex was in grade 12, and this would set his life on a spin that he would never recover from. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that his life was ruined at this point. All I'm saying is that if his mother hadn't passed away when she did, he might have ended up becoming an NBA player, but instead he decided to head back to the streets and start getting himself in trouble once again. Apparently Famous Dex was always a gangbanger all the way from the age of 12, but this is when he really started to get serious. And I know it's kind of funny to think that somebody like Dex might be in the streets of Chicago selling drugs and getting into crime, but that's exactly what happened. It was so prominent to the fact that he actually got into a documentary where you could see him alongside a couple other people talking about taking drugs, selling drugs, and you know, I don't want YouTube to demonetize this, so I'm just gonna say Tic Tacs and candy, I guess. And if you're wondering what gang Famous Dex was part of, he was actually part of the GEDs alongside people like FBG Duck and King Yella. So basically the opposite side from Lil Durk and King Von. They're BDs, I think. I don't know exactly how the gang lingo works over there, but either way, they definitely weren't friends. But anyways, even though Dexter was now doing work in the streets, destroying his health with drugs, and just overall making poor life choices, he was still very positive and would make a lot of connections just through his upbeat personality. And eventually, everybody on both sides of the gang war would start to get to know him, and pretty well everybody liked him at the time. But after one of his friends, known as Lil Jojo, ended up dying in a shooting, he decided he wanted to get out of the streets and start making some sort of legal money, because he started to realize there was no longevity in this type of career path. He was either going to end up in prison or passing away, and there was really no in between. So he decided to start doing what basically everybody else does in this type of situation, and he began rapping under the name Black Migo Dex. And the music he was creating under this name was super far off from what he would eventually become when he became Famous Dex. It wasn't that upbeat, drugged out sound that everybody fell in love with during 2016 and 2017. It was basically that average Chicago drill music that was popular at the time, well, at least in the neighborhood. In the broader rap game, it really wasn't that popular, so if Dex had any hope of blowing up into the mainstream, he was going to have to switch over to something a little bit more unique. He ended up dropping a project in 2014 called Never Saw It Coming, which was more of the same, and then after that, he decided to change his name once again to Slutty Boy Dex, remixing a track by the rapper Dej Low called Try Me, which was a lot more wavy and auto-tuned compared to his previous outings. But now that Dex was rocking with a brand new name and a brand new sound, it was time for a new project called Dope and TV. Now this project stayed up on SoundCloud for about a year's time before he decided to take it down and change his name one final time to Famous Dex, even though he wasn't famous yet. Now as much of a knee slapper as that is to be repeated over and over again with every single video that talks about Famous Dex ever. The reason he called himself Famous Dex is because he was very well known within his neighborhood, hence famous, even though it wasn't on a mainstream level yet. So now that he had finally decided on a name that he was going to run with throughout the rest of his career, he'd once again shoot a music video for a track called Dummy, which was kind of a mix of that Chicago sound with the more auto-tune stuff mixed in there. He was starting to get the idea, even though he wasn't a fully formed Famous Dex at this point. You could call him more of a well-known, somewhat well-known Dex, something like that. Now, one thing that a lot of people like to say about Famous Dex that I find very interesting is they call him the first SoundCloud rapper, and I feel like that mostly comes down to his appearance, that drugged out persona, and of course that high energy music that soon became synonymous with the SoundCloud wave. But to me, Dex was always more like a YouTuber than anything else, because once he started dropping on the platform, he couldn't be stopped. Because the music video was really what blew up Famous Dex in the first place. Sure, he had music on SoundCloud, but nobody was going over there to listen to the music. They wanted to see him dance around, they wanted to see what he looked like, and any artist starting off right now, make a music video. It will definitely help push your wave. Picture your favorite artist in your head right now. Okay, right? Yeah, you're thinking about them, right? That's because you've seen them in a music video. You actually have to see somebody to attach onto their personality and like their look and basically get to know everything they're trying to push with their music. Dropping random songs on SoundCloud will not get you popping anymore. That worked back in like 2016, but Famous Dex was ahead of the wave because he knew just how important a music video was and started running with it almost immediately. And this was all the way back in 2015 before anybody was really doing it like this. And it all started when Dex linked up with a well-known music video director known as Lyrical Films. And these two gentlemen would get to work creating music videos throughout the year, having that YouTuber mindset where as soon as they got 1,000, then they wanted 2,000, then it was 10, 20, and so on and so on. Now, I definitely can't mention every single song he dropped during this time because there's way too many, but I'll definitely mention the highlights right here. We immediately got All My Homies, Never Seen It Coming, and Don't Try, which were once again drill type music, but before long he realized that he didn't want to bring any more negativity to his city, so he decided to start going in a more positive direction permanently, with him dropping a mixtape called Never Seen It Coming, which was a mix of both high energy songs as well as a little bit of drill music, but for the most part he was fully phasing that out. He ended up dropping a music video for a track called Two Times, which was actually the first time that I ever heard him all the way back in middle school, and that track, while it was pretty stupid, was also pretty good. At this point he was cracking 10,000 plays on almost every single song he dropped, dropping another mixtape called Dexter's Laboratory, which was of course named after the Cartoon Network show that he watched as a kid, before then dropping his breakout track Drip From My Walk in late 2015, which became so popular in the local scene it actually began to be played on the radio. When Dexter realized all the work he was doing online was now bleeding through into the real world, he actually burst out in tears, realizing that he could finally change his entire family's life if he just kept working. That's gotta be a good feeling, man, and Dexter was motivated to keep going, dropping more music videos throughout 2016. He got a mixtape called Drippy, and then after that he started doing shows in the local area, actually meeting Rich the Kid and signing a deal with him at the very start of his career, which probably was a bad move overall, but it is crazy how early on he got signed. Although the price definitely wasn't right because he only got $20,000 to be signed, which is even less than 6ix9ine got with a lot less fame at the exact same time, so he definitely should have tried to get a little bit of a bigger bag, but either way this money would change his life because he no longer had to sell drugs on the side and now had enough money to make music videos full time, which he definitely took full advantage of. But at the same time, signing to Rich Forever definitely didn't make that much sense. Dexter did it because he thought that Rich could point him in the right direction, but Rich the Kid was already an upcoming rapper at the time and wasn't really somebody who had been in the game all that long, and seeing as how Dex was basically his own marketing machine, he didn't really need a label to help him out. But either way, that's the choice he made and the direction he went in, and he actually made another connection right at the same time that became way more beneficial, and that was connecting to Cole Bennett of Lyrical Lemonade. Now at this time Lyrical Lemonade really wasn't shit. They had a couple music videos with Warhol SS that did some numbers, around 20k I would say, but for the most part they definitely weren't the giant media company they've now become in 2024. But luckily Cole Bennett also had the exact same drive to make non-stop music videos as Famous Dex, and he would immediately drop his first song on the channel called Hit 'Em With It, which ended up doing even better than the prior videos that he released up to this point. And on top of that, he would also get connected to another up-and-coming rapper around the time known as Lil Yachty, who ended up dropping 2 features on Dexter's next project called Oh Man Goddamn. Immediately after that came another music video on Lyrical Lemonade called I'm Paid, where he would flex that 20k he got from Rich a couple months ago. He then dropped another music video for the track DMC the exact same day that the Rich Forever collaboration mixtape came out, which included Famous Dex, Rich the Kid, and Jay Stash. That definitely didn't age so well. If you don't know what he did, well, I got a video on it if you want to check it out. Soon after that came the music video for the track Roseanne's, followed up by another one for I'm Great featuring Carl Preach, and at this point Warhol SS and Famous Dex were definitely carrying the entire channel. Every time they dropped a music video, it would do way better than everything else on the channel, getting 20k followed by 30k and eventually 50k. And lucky for Dex, soon the channel would blow up big time with the back-to-back hits Ski Mask by Smoke Perp as well as NASCAR by Warhol SS, and after that Lyrical Lemonade went from a little media company to a big time deal in the underground, and Dex didn't stop dropping music videos on there for years to come. And in June of 2016 he would finally pack his bags and leave Chicago once and for all to get away from all the crime and everything going on there, unfortunately leaving people behind like FBG Duck, but at the time I'm sure that was the last thing on Dexter's mind. After all, they were friends and they definitely came up together, but he was about to go to LA and really chase the dream, make big time money, and hopefully make his way into the mainstream. And immediately as soon as he touched down, he would get connected to big time names like Man Savage, Diego Money, Trippie Redd, his own cousin Lil Wop, and of course Adam 22. And as soon as he touched down, he would drop his next project called Heartbreak Kid, which had a feature from both Lil Yachty as well as Rich the Kid, and immediately after that he started doing shows all over LA. And he ended up doing shows alongside people like Warhol SS, Lil Uzi Vert, and of course Rich the Kid, with him actually being bigger than Lil Uzi at this point in 2016, with the best collaboration of all time dropping on Lyrical Lemonade not long after that, with Warhol and Dex dropping the track On My Waist, which of course became a big time hit on the channel, getting more views than almost everything else besides of course NASCAR and Ski Mask. And right around the same time, Dex would sign a big time deal with 300 Entertainment through Rich Forever and finally get the big bag that he always deserved. And what did he spend that money on? Well, a bunch of lean and even more face tattoos, actually spending $20,000 on lean and spending $10,000 on tattoos. So he definitely wasn't spending his money responsibly. But after all, he was famous for the first time, so who really cares? And you can definitely start to see the effect that the lean was having on him in his next music video called OK Dexter, which actually became a huge hit, getting 20 million views on the channel, but at the same time his health was definitely starting to go downhill. And things got bigger and bigger from there, with him starting to land interviews on radio stations, dropping even more tracks on World Star Hip Hop as well as Lyrical Lemonade, and he was becoming a massive star, which is actually a bad thing because sure, the money is nice and everything going in the right direction, but he's basically being rewarded for being a drug addict, and eventually it would start to affect his music as well. And this led to the darkest day in Famous Dex's career, where he actually ended up getting in a physical altercation with a woman and having the entire event caught on video camera. So immediately after that, it was then leaked online, and almost everybody knew that Famous Dex was a domestic abuser. Now keep in mind this was 2016, so nobody really cared. This was a little bit before X got in trouble for the same thing, as well as 6ix9ine getting in trouble for his a lot darker crimes. So people were mad, but it didn't really affect his career when it came to fans. He did lose two big opportunities, losing a brand deal with Puma as well as not being able to get on the XXL freshman list in 2017, which Dex was initially okay with.
Just stop disrespecting Double XL. Congratulate them folks, man. It's life, y'all.
Until he found out the reason that he wasn't on the list was because of the video leaking online.
So basically Famous Dex didn't make it because of that video of him beating up the girl.
I guess if you want to put it that way, I mean, I guess if you want to put it that way, listen, you can argue either way. You can say X has got issues, and you can say that Famous Dex has issues.
Meanwhile, XXXTentacion was still allowed on, so immediately after that, he made a video and basically called out the magazine.
So that's why I didn't make Double XL, because that video of my girl. That's the reason why you could come up with that? Ma'am, you too disrespectful.
And if you're wondering how he responded to the initial event taking place online, well, he said it was his private life, so nobody should be talking about it, and then said it was her fault because she cheated on him, and then immediately after that posted a video in the hospital telling the world that she had just delivered his son and that they were still together and everything was okay, which I guess is good if the girl's okay with it, but at the same time, I feel like it's kind of messed up how everybody just forgot about this event. And then in 2017, he would go on the No Jumper podcast and try to clear his name up even further, basically saying that they moved on from it really quick, so everybody else should move on from it as well, which is basically what the world did, because once again this was 2016. And immediately after that, he went back to dropping non-stop music videos like the track Draco with Soulja Boy, Lemonade, and Jump in the Crowd, all racking up at least 1 million views, before then dropping another big hit called New Wave with Rich the Kid, which ended up getting a music video on World Star Hip Hop that got over 20 million views. So at this point, Famous Dex was undeniable. He was definitely a huge part of the SoundCloud wave. He was able able to keep himself in the public eye, and even though he wasn't the best lyricist, dropping nonstop made sure that everybody remembered him and didn't remember what he did a couple months ago. And immediately after this, he would drop my all-time favorite track from him called With Your Bitch on Lyrical Lemonade, getting 11 million views, before then getting a second music video on the channel when he remixed the song with Made in Tokyo, which was even better than the original in my opinion. In the new year, Dex would keep going hard, dropping countless music videos, getting notable features from Diego Money, Lil Pump, and of course, once again, Rich the Kid. And that music video alongside Lil Pump called Talking Shit went on to get 1 million views as well, but at this point, Dex was missing that one big hit, that one that would truly blow him up into the mainstream. He was definitely an important character, but he hadn't really made his mark in the actual music industry yet. But before that could happen, Famous Dex actually ended up
drinking too much juice,
with him posting up a video of him in the hospital claiming that he was going to quit mud once and for all, which definitely seems nice on paper, but as we were going to learn with Famous Dex, he claims he's going to do something and then he never does.
I just want to let my live know, all my fans know, that I quit codeine. I don't do the lean no more. That's on my kids. You know what I'm saying? You would never ever see me with a double cup.
But once again, even with his addiction getting worse and worse, he would get his biggest feature to date from A$AP Rocky on the track Pick It Up, which went on to get 40 million views on YouTube and even charted on the Billboard Hot 100. I swear, time and time again when it comes to these videos, it always seems like something really good happens to these guys right along something really bad. Maybe that's karma, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is karma really real? But anyways, this song went on to peak at number 54 on the Billboard Hot 100, and immediately after that, he would drop his biggest hit to date, Japan, going on to gain over 100 million plays on YouTube, which is absolutely insane. And also going on to debut at number 28 on the Billboard Hot 100, followed immediately up by his debut studio album, Dex Meets Dexter, which also went on to chart at number 12 on Billboard. So at this point, Dex had definitely made it into the mainstream and had 3 platinum hits under his belt, but unfortunately, from here on out, it's all downhill. Because at this point, his label got way too involved in his career, not letting him drop non-stop hits throughout the year and only letting him drop about once every 4 months, which definitely wasn't a good idea because nobody's waiting around for a Famous Dex song. Because with people like Dex, he really thrives off of dropping non-stop, and if he stops dropping for like 2 months time, people are going to forget about him and move on to the next big upcoming SoundCloud rapper, like, you know, Icy Narco, Kid Boo, somebody like that. So at this point, reaching his absolute peak in his career, he no longer really had to strive to be better. He had already done everything he wanted to do musically, so the only way to get a high was to actually get high. And Dex started to get more and more fucked up with drug use as the years went on. He ended up dropping another follow-up single called Light, which definitely underperformed. It didn't even hit the Billboard Hot 100, and after that, Dex never got on the Billboard again. And the video itself only got 200,000 views because it wasn't posted on Lyrical Lemonade or WorldStar. It was posted on his own personal YouTube channel, and then he ended the year off by actually being arrested. And this is because he was driving a car under the influence with a loaded gun in his backseat, which definitely isn't a smart idea for anybody wondering. At this point, he didn't get any prison time, but this was only the first time that he had a run-in with the law, and after that, it became more and more frequent, with stories of him getting in trouble with the law or being too messed up on drugs being more popular than his actual music. Because immediately after that, he would perform at a university where all the students would surround his car and not let him get out, so he decided to
pull out his water gun and spray everyone with water,
which once again got him in trouble with police, but still no prison time. Oh, I see. When Little Zam pulls out a gun on somebody, everybody makes fun of him, but when Famous Dex does it, apparently it's cool. Okay, I see how it is. So at this point, Famous Dex's reputation as a really fun, upbeat rapper who makes everybody happy was turning into him being a crazy junkie who would shoot at people, and immediately after that, he ended up passing out on a live stream and freaking his fans out once again. Now at this point, nobody really seemed to care because it was like 2017, 2018, and apparently drug use was still seen as funny, at least if you ask Trippie Redd, who ended up laughing about this event. Bro, Famous Dex is supposed to be your friend and you're laughing at him almost overdosing on a live stream. Damn, Trippie Redd's really a good guy, I gotta say. But I mean, I guess we can't be that mad at Trippie Redd because after all, Famous Dex didn't even take the situation seriously, saying that he was working really hard and that's why he passed out on the live stream, not because he was
getting vaccinated
all night. That's definitely the reason. Now at this point it was 2019, and alongside the entire SoundCloud wave starting to fizzle out, his output was really slowing down, and every time that he did drop a song, it was basically inaudible drugged out murmuring, so nobody really wanted to listen to it anymore. Before then finishing off that year by having an actual seizure on stage, which is not funny. I'm not even going to make a joke about that, but seriously, things were getting really bad for Famous Dex, and it seems like absolutely nobody cared. And after that event, he actually disappeared off the internet for a couple months, with everybody hoping that he went to rehab, but instead he came back online showing everybody that he was still sipping mud and eating Tic Tacs. So yeah, it seems like he didn't learn anything after that event. So everybody was hoping that his next project, Diana, might be his big comeback, but when it did finally come out, it was not good. It actually ended up selling 3,000 units, which was even less than Smoke Perp, who everybody was clowning on at the time. And I sat through the entire album, and let me tell you, oh boy, it is not good whatsoever. It's basically the worst project I've ever heard from Famous Dex. I mean, his prior music definitely isn't that good, but at least it was high energy and fun. This is just depressing. I'm sorry, I gotta say it, but I actually think that Total Xanarchy is a much better project than this one. It's actually that bad, guys. Like, I'm telling you, don't listen to it. And then Famous Dex got even more ridicule because apparently he thought it was trending on Apple Music, but he was only looking at his own stats and it wasn't. So immediately after that, everybody started to make even more fun of him. And at this point, I basically gave up on Famous Dex because he ended up
hugging
another woman, and after doing it twice and not learning his lesson in 4 years, I feel like he's basically an irredeemable piece of but that's just me. And this time it was a lot worse than the first time. It was very violent, and I really can't show you anything about it or really talk about it too much because I don't want to get in trouble, but yeah, it was not a good situation. And if that wasn't bad enough, Famous Dex actually ended up having a standoff with the police, with him locking himself in his house
and eating his entire birthday cake and getting a tummy ache.
and they were eventually able to talk him down, but that definitely could have been the end of Famous Dex right there. And at this point, he got himself some pretty gnarly charges, with him finally looking at prison time for up to 5 years, and it basically seemed like Famous Dex was burning out and nobody was going to even notice when he was gone, until a picture surfaced online of him looking like he aged over 40 years, and a lot of people in the community, recently being rocked by the loss of Juice WRLD, decided to reach out and try to help him. But instead of accepting that help, he actually ended up getting angry at his fans, telling them to leave him alone because he was just getting high and having fun. It wasn't anything that serious, and he was allowed to live his life however he wanted because after all, he's a grown man.
But y'all so worried about me. Whatever y'all worried about, get the fuck off my dick.
But luckily, NLE Choppa would reach out to Dex's management, basically telling them to get involved and try to get him into rehab, and finally Dex would hear reason and he decided to head off to rehab a couple months later, with the picture of him surfacing online alongside Rich the Kid, where basically the entire internet was on his side, hoping that he would finally go through a detox, get off drugs once and for all, and come back to the music game bigger than ever. But instead, he ended up leaving rehab before it was over, and then once again surfacing online, smoking Tic Tacs before eventually sipping candy once again and getting back into his old habits. And then after that, all these charges finally caught up to him, and he was sentenced to 364 days in jail, which a lot of people were actually kind of happy about because they felt like if he went in there, he would detox and come out better. But of course, he ended up getting released early because the prison was overcrowded. So once again, he came out, said he was sober, and then immediately went back to drugs. After this, for some reason, he got into a beef with King Von, where he basically called him out for killing his friend FBG Duck, which does make sense, but at the same time, Famous Dex is supposed to be all about positivity, so calling out King Von doesn't really make a lot of sense.
We're supposed to be together, like coming together, and we're supposed to be coming together, black on black, we're coming together, so.
And King Von ended up responding, basically saying that Famous Dex was a groupie and he wasn't going to acknowledge him in any way.
We ain't gonna talk about no goofies on my shit today. No, we ain't gonna address it.
With Famous Dex responding to that, saying they could do a boxing match and basically sock and bop each other, whatever that means.
We can get some soccer boppers. Soccer boppers, soccer boppers. I'ma bop your ass. Gloves? What was that saying?
Before then backing out completely and saying that he doesn't have any beef with King Von whatsoever, so that was just another embarrassing situation for him. And on top of that, it turns out that FBG Duck's mother is actually mad at Famous Dex because she feels like he basically left him in the hood when he could have taken him out and put him in a better situation. And then after that, basically everybody forgot about Famous Dex. He was still one of those rappers that was a big part of the initial SoundCloud wave, but for the most part, nobody was checking in on new music, nobody was waiting around for him to drop anything, and nobody cared. And he's only recently popped up again because King Yella started calling him out on the No Jumper podcast, basically saying that he left absolutely everybody behind in the hood and that he wasn't a real person and he was a snake.
Dex is just not a genuine person, bro. He's not. Like, anybody that leaves everybody, think about that. You left everybody.
With Famous Dex responding to that in a Say Cheese interview, basically saying that they never did anything for him in the first place, and all his real friends ended up dying in Chicago, so he had a real reason to leave, which definitely makes a lot of sense. I don't think he should have stayed in Chicago. He definitely would have ended up in a bad situation if he did, but you can see why people are somewhat mad with him for leaving and not giving them any money, but it's a complex situation. But King Yella didn't respond in any intelligent way. He basically said that Famous Dex was smoking Tic Tac and his teeth fell out, which might be true. I don't even know at this point.
He's broke. He don't have nothing. You lost your YouTube channel, everything. Why? Because God don't like ugly. You a fucking goofy. You ain't even got no bottom teeth.
And yeah, that's basically the story of Famous Dex. I mean, it's just a bunch of sad events strung together. It's not really a fun story to tell. After everything's over, all the clout goes and the fame is done, this is what ends up happening. You have no idea if you're actually going to be able to quit sipping mud, if you're going to be able to stop popping beans, if you're going to be able to stop eating Tic Tacs. You may become addicted forever, and if it doesn't take you out, it will basically take your soul. At the same time, I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for Famous Dex because once again, like I said, he does a lot of awful stuff and basically blames it all on his addiction, which is not a good way to be. And in recent years, he actually left Rich forever and called out Rich the Kid, basically saying that he never really did anything for him.
I'm not rich forever. You don't see no that shit dead, bro. Nigga, you lame, bro.
And then signed another big deal for $6 million. So I guess you can't really say that he fell off because he's still making money, but I feel like people signing him to record deals is only going to give him more money to fall further and further into his addiction. But at this point, apparently he has to be sober. Not sure if he's on house arrest or maybe he's just on probation, but either way, he's got an ankle monitor and apparently he's no longer even allowed to smoke weed. So hopefully he's finally sober. I know he recently had a music video on Lyrical Lemonade, which a lot of people seem to like, and he also recently performed at Summer Smash, so that connection to Cole Bennett definitely keeps his career going somewhat. But if you were to ask me what the saddest fall off of all time was, I would definitely tell you Famous Dex, because unlike Smoke Perp, who still has money and seems to be pretty good, or Little Pump, who's still having fun doing different things, but I feel like with Famous Dex, actually getting that fame was a bad thing for him. So Famous Dex, I'm sorry this happened. Hopefully you can get sober at this point. The dude's almost 30, so it's definitely time for him to turn his life around, and hopefully he doesn't get into any more violent altercations. But at this point, my hope in him and faith is definitely lost. Yeah, man, that's it. Shout out to Rich the Kid, I guess. Not shout out to Jay Stash. Not shout out to Famous Dex. Adam22, why did you let these two abusers get on your podcast and clear their name? They ended up killing people. Well, not Famous Dex, but anyways. I'm actually not pinning that on Adam22. That's a joke. I mean, seriously, it's not his fault. He didn't know, and like I said, let's try to end off on a positive note and say that maybe Famous Dex might make a comeback. At this point, I guess my words actually have consequences, so I'll try to be a little bit more serious. But thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video and you want to see more like it, then share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to 15K, and by the time this video comes out, maybe I'll be there. But either way, I'm doing more long form stuff, so tell me who you want to see next and I'll be on it. Twisted World 2024, we got that new gang, that knife gang, that pig game. We got the knife in the pig game. It don't even matter. It's all clout. Doot doodle loot loo. Peace out. Subscribe to my second channel too. Bye.